In suburban New Orleans, a deputy sheriff pulls a car over and is shot point blank.
And he caught one round that transversed across his body.
The killer escapes, but leaves behind an unusual clue. Can Dr. Henry Lee uncover the evidence that will lead police to the killer? Deputy James Clarious was shot and killed after pulling a robbery suspect over for questioning. Authorities had a suspect in the murder, Ulysses Jones, but all the evidence tying him to the shooting was circumstantial. Jefferson Parish sheriffs asked Dr. Henry Lee to re-examine both crime scenes, the street where Officer Clarious was shot, and the convenience store the killer had robbed just minutes before the murder occurred.
Dr. Lee, the suspect approached the counter and presented this bottle of Crazy Horse and asked for a pack of Camel cigarettes.
Clerk handled him.
He put his hand in his pocket and insinuated he had a weapon. The clerk left and he reached over the counter, took the money from the register, walked out through the front door, and got into that Geo Metro parked by the gas pump.
The scene then moved to Page Drive, where Officer Clarious had been shot and killed. Dr. Lee went over each piece of evidence they'd found.
At the scene of the shooting, they began to find evidence that would speak to perhaps what had taken place here. And they found his handcuff in a very precarious position. That is, that first of all, it was outside of the handcuff holder. Second of all, one of the handcuffs were unclasped. Clearly, he was involved in an attempt to handcuff an individual.
Next to the handcuffs was the unusual watch. Not far from the watch, bullet casings were found.
2 casings next to the watch handcuff, 2 other casings not indicative the shooter's locations.
Dr. Lee returned to his lab to examine the evidence. He started with the blue jeans detectives had found at Ulysses' apartment. On one pair of jeans, Dr. Lee found 3 minute traces of blood. One trace had enough DNA for testing. But when the results came back, it was found to be Ulysses Jones's own blood, not the victim's. Next, Jefferson Parish lab technicians examined the Lady Liberty watch found near James Clarious' body.
The trace evidence we found small amount of the tissue material, also a little tiny fragment of hair. The microscopic characteristics similar to an American black.
Dr. Lee found human DNA on the watch band. Using a new technology called DQ alpha testing, he compared the new samples to Ulysses Jones's DNA profile.
The DQ alpha testing, however, did provide information. That is that the specific alleles detected were found to be consistent with the known blood type of the suspect.
Consistent, but not a definitive DNA match. Prosecutors knew that the jury had to be convinced that Ulysses Jones disarmed Officer Clarious, then shot him with his own service weapon.
The handcuff on the ground gave us the clue. One cuff was open. The officer more likely started cuffing him. The suspect at that moment seized the opportunity. Let's say I played a suspect, okay? And the officer going to arrest me. Took the weapon out.
Put your hands on the guard. Put your hand behind your back.
At this point, he pulled the gun, boom. And he walked over, that's why the handcuff was on the ground, fired a couple more shots, point blank.
Dr. Lee's forensic team went over every piece of trace evidence, then traveled to New Orleans to testify about what they'd found on the Lady Liberty watch. The DNA profile matched an estimated 10% of the population. But placed beside all the other evidence presented to the jury, it provided the crucial link that tied the case together.
It's not just a source of DNA at a scene, it's a source of DNA found on the type of watch that the suspect was wearing. It was found a few feet away from the dead deputy. You're finding a profile that will not exclude the suspect, that it's on a very unique watch, which he is known to have, and through other investigative information and other witness statements, it now becomes highly valuable and highly probative evidence.
The trial of Ulysses Jones lasted 10 days as prosecutors wove together the circumstantial and forensic evidence. The verdict was guilty of murder in the first degree. The sentence was life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom was in an uproar. Neither the verdict nor the evidence has been contested on appeal.
The physical evidence, the DNA, actually just one part of a total mosaic, one little piece. But that little piece, like a corner piece, provides some crucial information. So this case, the crime scene, physical evidence, witnesses, and public information, everything fall together.